States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item we have on the agenda is the consent agenda. The council report December 16th, 2022 through December 29th, 2022. Board of Aldermen meeting minutes December 19th, 2022. Board of Aldermen budget workshop meeting minutes December 19th, 2022. Board of Aldermen public hearing meeting minutes December 22nd, 2022. Board of Aldermen special meeting minutes December 22nd, 2022.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
I'll second.
May I have roll call, please?
Alderman Beelan.
Aye.
Alderman Sandy.
Aye.
Alderman Sykes.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item we have on the agenda is ordinance bill number 2023-01, an ordinance providing, after the approval of a majority of voters in St. Clair, for the appointment of a chief of police. Administrator Stolberg.
This was brought up because we have an elected chief of police, and one of the problems that could arise is if for some reason the chief were no longer the chief, we would have a limited number of people who would be qualified that are within the city limits to run for that elected position. And so it would kind of stand to reason that we want the best qualified person as much as possible for our chief of police. And by using it as an elected, or having it as an elected position, that does limit our number of candidates, and it does limit the number of people that would be qualified for it. And so it was, it does have to go to a vote of the people, and that vote has to be a majority vote. There's no super majority needed, but it does have to go to a vote for the people. So this ordinance is to allow us to put this on the ballot for April 4th, to see if we could have this an appointed chief of police rather than an elected one.
Has this ever been tried before in St. Clair?
Not since the 90s.
Yeah, twice before, once in the 80s and once in the 90s.
I can see the benefits of it. I mean, for instance, let's just say I was a very popular person in St. Clair, and the people elected me, and I had no idea what to do with that office. It would just be in chaos. And it's just better that someone with experience, somebody that we could appoint, the board could appoint, and not the majority of that person's friends, relatives, acquaintances, lovers, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. You know, and I remember in Pacific one time, they elected a judge who was a used car salesman. It was Herbie Adams. Turned out that he did a very good job in court. Everybody liked him. However, he wasn't a lawyer. He didn't know the law. He knew how to sell used cars. He was a very respected person in town. He still is. But that's the situation they ran into. So I never was in his courtroom. I can't say how he performed or whatever. But it's a situation I don't think we would want to get into. If somebody was elected that didn't know the law, was never a police officer. That's just my opinion.
How many did you tell me were in the entire state?
Including me, 3.
3. So there's only 3 elected of the entire state.
Me, Pacific, and St. Anne.
So it seems that other municipalities have gone this direction, and if you look at it, just, you know, basically the only qualification that you would have to have would be a resident of the city. And that could be anybody. So I agree with Alderman Veland. I think we need to really be concerned about someone who would be qualified to do the job. So I would introduce Bill number 2023-01 for first and second reading by title only.
Bill number 2023-01, an ordinance providing after the approval of a majority of the voters voting at an election in which the question is submitted for the appointment of a chief of police. Second reading. An ordinance providing after the approval of a majority of the voters voting in an election at which the question is submitted for the appointment of chief of police.
I move to approve bill number 2022-01 is read. I'm sorry, 2023-01 is read.
And I'll second.
May I have roll call, please?
Alderman Sykes,
Nay.
Alderman Saley,
Yes.
Alderman Beeland,
Aye.
Motion carries. Bill number 2023-01 becomes ordinance number 2094. Resolutions, we have none. Unfinished business, we have none. New business, discussion regarding amending the certification advancement policy for city employees. Administrator Stolberg.
This was brought up that several of the departments had a number of certifications that allow for a pay raise with those certifications. And the court clerk only had one, in which there are a number of certifications that are available for the court clerk. And so I wanted to bring this to your attention so that we could discuss it as far as allowing for pay raises or increases in pay for certain certifications.
So in the current, we have under court clerk, there's just one certification that was listed.
That is correct.
And has our court clerk attained that one?
Yes.
Did the city pay for those certifications?
I believe so.
Time, travel, courses, the whole thing?
I believe so.
So it's my understanding, and I apologize to those we talked about this in the department meeting. I wasn't totally informed, so this is why I'm asking for clarification. It's my understanding that there was a certification obtained that was not on our current list. Is that correct by the court clerk?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so my question was, as I read this, it says, let me make sure, that for anyone to obtain their certifications, the certification will be subject to the approval of the appropriate department head and city administrator. So my first question would be, if it wasn't on our current list, who was in charge of approving that?
Well, it looks like, I mean, when you read it, it just says the department head and city administrator is needed.
It is. So
Yeah.
who was the city administrator at the time? I don't know how long ago this was done. We've been through it.
It's been years, hasn't
This-
it? I think Travis
This
would have been.
originally was approved back in 2009, I think.
No,
No,
that was
no.
11.
I'm sorry,
She's
you're
talking
talking
about
about
the
The
certification that just
certification
happened.
that was not on our on the list
Oh.
of approved
Okay.
courses.
Oh,
That
I'm sorry.
certification.
I'm sorry,
Your
I thought you
understanding.
meant the certification that was on the list that she's already had.
Yeah, the approval was given to a class that was not approved by the board or on the current list. So that, I'd like to know how that process even took place, because it's clearly outlined here under the implementation of the policy.
That certification was attained last year.
And you would have approved that, or?
Yes.
You did, even though it was not on the current list.
I didn't approve the certification.
The course, for her to take the course, because it says that in order for them, the certification shall be subject to the approval of the appropriate department.
It was attained last year, but the certification actually, let me get that certification takes 8 years to, I'm not sure exactly, yeah, I think it takes 8 years to get that certification done. It has a requirement for being 8 years in the position before you can get that certification.
Well, nevertheless, it would have had to be approved for them to go through the process.
So I don't know who would have approved that. I would assume it was Travis when she started the certification process.
And that was for Supreme Court of Missouri certification. So I guess anytime I've ever gone through any kind of certifications, my supervisors worked with me in a plan as to how I'm going to achieve and in what order I would need to achieve, much as we did with our building instructor when he was brought on board. It was outlined as much as Chief does with his officers about certification. So there seems to me there was a breakdown in process someplace along the line that allowed the certification to be applied for and attained without going through the proper channels. Am I correct?
Well, again, I don't know, because she would have started this several years ago. I don't know if she did this or applied for it through the city administrator or not.
Well, I would like to make a motion to table this until we find out a little bit more information, because I don't think that at first glance, it doesn't seem to me like we were straight on our procedures to do this, and I don't feel comfortable going forward until I feel that even if we go to the proposed, that we're going to follow the guidelines, and we haven't been able to do that in the past.
We just went through the budget, and this should have been in there, period, because this is all funding that's not put into place and planned for this year, and we had to freeze a ladder raise. So, looking at the budget, this part is a little disheartening, because I don't know where we came up with these certifications, the calculations for these certifications, anything about it, and it would have been great to see this, even if it was just a couple weeks ago before the final approval. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable adopting a certification advancement schedule when we literally just told the PD that we were freezing their step raises due to lack of funding and, to put it in, I mean, literally every other department within the city is included in the certification schedule except the PD. We just told the PD we were freezing their pay scale, and now we're gonna put one in place for everyone else. I don't feel like that's appropriate at all, so. I will agree with Alderman Sealing and make a motion to table this until a later time.
So that was a second on that motion.
Second.
Did you already make it?
I did make the motion.
Okay, so I will second Alderman Sealing's
Thank you.
motion, sorry.
Kim, could we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Beeler.
Aye.
Alderman Salem.
Aye.
Alderman Sykes.
Aye.
With this being said, it's going to pose another question, because it's based on, there was a budget issue based on this salary schedule, or certification schedule, I should say.
I will say from my perspective and the conversations that I had regarding that pay request, it was my understanding that it was not based on this certification schedule, but it was something that the court budget could accommodate and could handle, and it was what that department had put in place, and it was in the budget. It was there before us when the board voted on it. I asked questions about it. I was told from Administrator Stolberg that it was, for things, it was put in there by the department head to accommodate for certifications required or obtained. I don't feel like it's any different than what we did with Public Works. They're getting a different percentage increase than other departments are. I do feel like when I asked the questions regarding why that was given, why that was put into the budget and that pay was increased, I feel like, again, I wasn't given a clear indication. Like when I was told that it was for certifications obtained, when I sit in this seat, I make decisions to the best of my ability, but obviously this is not my full-time job. And I rely on information that is given to me and a mutual trust and respect that someone who is in this and runs the city on a day-to-day basis is going to give me accurate information. So when I was told that it was for a certification that was obtained, and that was what was presented and the budget could accommodate it, I fully endorsed it. I voted on the budget last meeting knowing that that pay increase was in there and knowing why it was in there because I asked the questions. Now, the fact that it was not in our proposed certification schedule, I feel like should have probably been known. And honestly, I hate to throw you under the bus, but I really wish, Don, you would have been able to say this was not in the proposed schedule, because I do the best I can to sit in, to give this job my 100% effort, but it's not my full-time job. I can't research everything. And so when information is given, I make my decisions based on the information I have. And if it doesn't follow our ordinances or our resolutions, I can't research 50 years of that. I feel like, that should fall on your shoulders. And when you say this comes from a certification, you should know that the personnel policy backs that up if that's what the department head is asking for. Now in hindsight, I feel like taking money away from an individual after the board just voted to approve the budget is not a good idea either. It's not something that I think is fair or right, but I do feel like the information we were given was probably not accurate when I asked the questions. So that's just what I had.
I apologize because I went by what was printed. I don't remember your questions, but I did miss some budget meetings, as did Mr. Veland. So I do not remember any of that discussion, and to go through every single salary and calculate them, I don't think anybody did that. Maybe you did, but I did not. I went for face value, and at the very beginning in the introduction it says the proposed salary of 2023 wages includes a 4.1 increase for all employees with a 7.7 increase for Public Works. There's no other indication on here that any other department was given any kind of compensation other than that was here. All the discussions that I was in, I never heard anything but the 4.1. We discussed it at length in about 5 to maybe 6 meetings. In addition to that, I have been told, and I will ask you, at any time, whenever second eyes were put on the budget, were you told that it probably would not be a good idea to include that item in the budget until it was approved by the board?